Nominal. It is easy to forget statistics. Keep learning. Chapter Ohm. Exercises. Write true or false and correct the false. Not the same. 1. The terms statistics and biostatistics possess the soon applications, false, same. Inductive. 2. Descriptive statistics is built on inferential statistics. Falca. 3. Hypothesis testing is a part of the inferential statistics. True. 4. In order to make future predictions, the statistical process starts with the descriptive procedures. True. 5. Inferential statistics can be also identified as deductive statistics. False. 6. The population must be large in size. False may. Nominal. 7. The animal species is an example of a categorical ordinal variable. False. Statistic 8. The estimate obtained from a sample called a parameter. False. Housed loud. 9. Animal temperature in Celsius is an example of the highest level of measurement. Tit. False. Pedo. Qualitative variables can be classified into discrete and continuous. Systemy. 11. Selecting a sample by taking every ATH element from the population is called cluster sampling. False. 12. Probability sampling depends mainly on randomization. Toure. 13. A valid inference about the entire population under study can be taken from the quota sample. False. Indem R97 representative sample mean that cash population unit has equal selection probability? False. Decrease. 15. The larger the sample size, the larger the sampling error. False. Choose the correct answer. 1. Statistical inference. A. Refers to the process of drawing inferences about the sample based on the characteristics of the population. B. Is the same as descriptive statistics. Is the process of drawing inferences about the population based on the information taken from the sample. 2. Which of the following are considered as qualitative data? A. Ordinal and ratio. B. Nominal and interval. C. Interval and ratio. D. Nominal and ordinal. 10. CAM scanner. 3. An ordinal scale variable. A. Has a meaningful 0 point. B. May assume negative values. Allows ranking of the data categories. 4. In which level of measurement the 0 point is not true? A. Ordinal. C. Interval. B. Nominal. D. Ratio. Otter 1. 5. The lowest level of measurements that allows sorting of the data but has an arbitrary 0 point? A. Cardinal. Hyderval. B. Nominal. 6. In a farm of 1,000 animals of different species, 80% are dairy, 10% beef, 5% horse, 4% sheep, and 1% goats. To select a sample of 100 animals to analyze food habits, the ideal sampling method would be A. Simple random sampling. C. Systematic random sampling. B. Stratified random sampling. D. Cluster sampling. 7. A sampling method that involves a random start and then proceeds with the selection of every K element from then onwards, where K population size, sample size. A. Simple random sampling. C. Systematic sampling. B. Stratified sampling. D. Cluster sampling. 8. Which of the following sampling techniques is ideal for obtaining a representative sample? Corpus C. A. Simple random sampling. C. Systematic sampling. B. Stratified sampling. D. Cluster sampling. 9. In order to make generalizations from the sample to the population, the collected sample must be A. Random. B. Representative. C. Both A and B. 10. All the following sampling techniques are based on the researcher's experience, except A. Snowball. Operenda. Dr. Iman. B. Stratified sampling. D. Purposive. Cam scanner. 2. People's periods don't yell. Deep. Chapter T. Exercises. L. Write true or false and correct the false. 1. A frequency distribution for qualitative data shows the number of observations, cash class. True. 2. The midpoint of a class, which is also called a class mark, is halfway between lower and upper limits. Rue. 3. A class interval, which is the width of a class, can be determined by subtracting lower limit of a class from the upper limit of the same class. False. 4. Class boundaries are obtained by adding 0.5 to the lower class limit and subtracting 0.5 from the upper class limit. False. Baited to construct a histogram are the class frequencies plotted on the vertical axis and the midpoints plotted on the horizontal axis. False. 5. To convert a frequency distribution to a relative frequency distribution, divide the AD class frequency by the sum of the class frequencies. True. Poe vintage. 7. A pie chart shows the number of observations in each class. False. 8. Does the ascending cumulative frequency of the first class equal the sum of the class frequencies? False. 9. A cumulative frequency distribution is used when we want to determine how many observations lie above or below certain values. True. 10. In general, we should construct a frequency distribution so that there are either 4 or 52024 classes. False. 11. The height of a bar in a histogram represents the percentage of observations for a class. Fade. Percentage. 12. A relative frequency distribution shows the number of observations in each class. No gup. False. Falsa. 13. The bars in the histogram have gaps in between. Later. 14. Is the difference between the bar chart and the histogram that the former has class boundaries on the x-axis instead of class intervals? Pulse. 15. The sum of the total relative frequencies is 100. Should be 100%. Fake. (11) Choose the correct answer. 1. The relative frequency for a class is computed as A. Class width divided by class interval. B. Class midpoint divided by the class frequency. C. Class frequency divided by the class interval. D. Class frequency divided by the total frequency. The loyalty of others is measured by what they do behind your back, not what you see in front of you. 2. In a frequency distribution, what is the number of observations in a class? A. Class midpoint. B. Class interval. C. Class array. Redistribata. Can. D. Class. Frequency frequentitating. 3. A group frequency distribution can be qualitative, cathode. B. Discrete. C. Continuous. D. Both B and C. 4. The suitable formula for computing the number of classes is A. 3.322 log n. C. Plus 3.322 log n. B. 0.322 log n. D. 1 to 3.322 log n. Number 5. A graphical tool that is used to present the qualitative data by the frequency distribution is A. Ogive. B. Bar chart. C. Pie chart. D. Histogram. 6. The height of each point in the frequency polygon represents the midpoint of each class. A. True. B. False. 7. The class intervals in the group frequency table must be, which means that with no gaps in between, even if a class has no data. A. Equal. C. Mutually exclusive. Bicontinuous. D. Exhaustive. 8 is the maximum limit of the class interval. A. Class width. B. Lower limit. Upper limit. D. Frequency. Nominal data can be presented by A. Ogive. B. Bar and pie graph. C. Histogram. 10 is effective for comparing parts to a whole. Oppo Reno 53 bar chart. Dr. Iman. C. Pie chart. D. Histogram. 22. Oppo A9 2020. Thing becomes free. Write true or false and correct the false. 1. The arithmetic mean is sensitive to the extreme values, t. 2. When the data is categorical and contains repeated values, the appropriate summary statistic is the range, f. Bar chart. 3. The most common way to visualize the mode is histogram. Mean. 4. The variance is the average squared deviation from the median of the dataset. Of the observations by N. to Coiril. 5. The sample mean is calculated by dividing the sum. 6. The difference between the 25th percentile and the 75th percentile is the median. F. 7. When the data contains outliers, the accurate measure of central tendency to obtain is the mean. And F. Median. Right. 8. The right longer whisker of the box plot indicates the left skewed distribution of the data. F. Sense it. 9. The range is resistant to outliers. F. 10. The median is POT, a unique summary measure of the data F. Choose the correct answer. 1. The median of discrete odd data series is given by A. Value. Value. C. Fifth value. 2. Which of the following is not a disadvantage of using mean? I. It is affected by extreme values. B. It does not possess the desired algebraic property. C. It is a unique value. 7. 3. To calculate the median, all the items of a series have to be arranged in A. Ascending order. Ascending or descending order. B. Descending order. Number of times. B. Minimum. D. Infinite. 4. Mode refers to the value within a series that occurs. Maximum. C. 0. Oppo. 5 is not a measure of the central tendency? Dr. Iman. Oppo A 920. A. Mean. B. Mode. Positron. C. Median. 6. The number of observations smaller than observations larger than it is the same as the number. B. Mode. D. Range. C. Mean. D. Range. D. Range. Divides the data into 4 equal parts. 7. A median. A. Median. Quartiles. C. Mean. 8. Values that differ greatly from the measures of central tendency are called A. Mean. B. Midrange. Outliers. D. Statistics. 9. Which of the following are characteristics of a good measure of dispersion? A. It should be easy to calculate. B. It should not be affected by the fluctuations within the sampling. C. It should be expressed by the original data units. All of the above. 10. While calculating the standard deviation, the deviations are only taken from A. The median of the dataset. B. The mean of the dataset. C. The range of the dataset. 11. The numerical value of a standard deviation can never be A. Negative and smaller than the variance. C. Positive and larger than the variance. 12. Which of the following metrics is outliers resistant? A. Variance. C. Median. B. 0. D. None of the above. B. SD. D. Arithmetic mean. 13. The graph that used to visualize the extreme data values is A. Pi. B. Box plot. C. Polygon. 14. The left whisker connects between and A. Q1 and max. B. Min and median. D. Histogram. 15. When the median is closer to Q1 than Q3, the distribution seems to be A. Symmetric. B. Positive skewed. Oppo Reno 5. Dr. Iman. C. Min in 25th percentile. C. Negative skewed. Oppo A 9 2020. Write true or false and correct the false. 1. The paired samples t-test is used to compare the means of 2 independent groups' vowels. 2. The independent samples t-test assumes that the 2 samples come from population with different standard deviations. 3. Each independent sample must have the same number of observations and compare at the means of 2 independent populations. 4. When the sample sizes are equal, the pooled variance of the 2 groups is the average of the 2 sample variances, RO. 5. The paired samples t-test assumes the homogeneity of variances. 6. N may equal N in the dependent samples t-test phase. 7. When the test statistic of the paired samples t-test, one-tailed, falls right to the critical value, we can conclude that there is no significant difference between the tested pair. True. 8. If a sample of drinking water was divided into 2 parts, to compare the effect of 2 different chemical disinfectants, chlorine compounds and iodine. Here the appropriate statistical test is the independent samples t-test, false. 9. When the subjects under study were measured twice at different times. This is a natural pairing, false. 10. When evaluating the impact of two different diets on two groups of calves of matched age and breeds each of 10 calves. The degree of freedom is 18. Foul. Choose the correct answer. 1. In an independent samples t-test, which assumption must be met? A. The two samples are dependent. B. The data must be nominal. C. The variances of the two populations are equal. D. The sample sizes must be equal. 2. When conducting a two-sample t-test for independent samples, the degrees of freedom are calculated as A. The sum of the sample sizes of both groups minus 2. B. The product of the sample sizes of both groups. C. The sum of the sample sizes of both groups. D. The difference between the sample sizes of both groups. 3. The number of degrees of freedom associated with the R-test, when the data are gathered from a matched pairs experiment with 20 pairs, is A. 22. B. 18. C. 20. D. 19. 4. Which of the following is not an assumption of the independent samples t-test? A. The two groups must be independent of each other. B. The dependent variable must be normally distributed. The sample sizes must always be equal. D. The variance of both groups should be equal. Homogeneity of variance. 5. In a two-tailed t-test with A equals 0.05, what does rejecting the null hypothesis mean? A. The probability of making a type 1 error is greater than 0.05. B. There is a significant difference between the groups being compared. C. The probability of making a type 2 error is 0. D. The sample means are exactly equal. 6. Which of the following situations would be best analyzed using an independent samples t-test? T. A. Measuring the heart rate of cows before and after a treatment. B. Comparing the weight of two different breeds of dogs. C. Testing the effectiveness of a new drug on the same group of animals over time. Z. D. Measuring blood pressure in the same group of sheep at two different times. 7. What is the primary purpose of conducting a t-test? A. To compare the means of two groups to determine if they are significantly different. B. To measure the correlation between two variables. Oppo. Rare 3 or more group means. 64. Differences between the means of two independent populations. The null hypothesis is A. H underscore A mu underscore 1 mu underscore 2 equals 2. B. H underscore A mu underscore 1 mu underscore 3 equals 0. C. H underscore 0 mu underscore 1 mu underscore 2 greater than 0. D. H underscore A mu underscore 1 mu underscore 1 less than 2. 9. If we are testing for the difference between the means of two related populations with samples of N1 equals 20 and N2 equals 20, the number of degrees of freedom is equal to A. 39, B. 38, O. 19, D. 18. 10. Which of the following best describes the null hypothesis, HO, in a t-test? It states that there is a significant difference between the means of the two groups. B. It assumes that any observed difference between groups is due to random chance. It always predicts a directional change in the population mean. D. It is only used in one-tailed tests. Exercises. Write true or false and correct the false. 1. One way ANOVA can be used to compare the means of two groups. False. 2. A significant F statistic in ANOVA indicates that all group means are significantly different from each other. True. 3. One of the assumptions of one-way ANOVA is that the populations have equal variances. The width. 4. The error sum of squares, SS, measures the variability between treatment means. In ANOVA, the total sum of squares, SS, is the sum of the treatment sum of squares, SS, and the error sum of squares, SS. 6. The F statistic in ANOVA is calculated as the ratio of the mean square between groups to the mean square within groups. We S are dependent. False. 7. ANOVA assumes that the samples are man. 8. The primary purpose of ANOVA is to compare variances across groups. False. 9. One-way ANOVA is used to analyze the relationship between a categorical independent variable and a continuous dependent variable. True. 10. The degrees of freedom for the treatment in one-way ANOVA are calculated as K1 degrees of freedom in the denominator and NK degrees of freedom in the numerator. False. Choose the correct answer. 1. Which of the following is not an assumption of one-way ANOVA? 8. The populations from which the samples are drawn must be normally distributed. B. The groups must have equal variances. C. The samples must be dependent. Add does. D. The samples must be independent. 2. What is the degrees of freedom for the numerator between group variance in a one-way ANOVA if there are 4 groups? A. 6. B. 3. C. D. 4. 3. In a one-way ANOVA, what does the F statistic represent? Treat. 8. The ratio of the between group variance to the within group variance. B. The difference between the largest and smallest group mean. The ratio of the total sum of squares to the within group sum of squares. D. The average variance within each group. Chapter 7. 4. When performing an ANOVA, what does rejecting the null hypothesis imply? 8. The sample sizes are inadequate. B. All group means are equal. C. At least one group's mean is significantly different from the others. 921. The variances within groups are unequal. 5. What is the primary difference between a one-way ANOVA and a two-way ANOVA? 8. One-way ANOVA is used for dependent samples, while two-way ANOVA is used for independent samples. B. One-way ANOVA can only handle one group, while two-way ANOVA can handle 2 groups. C. One-way ANOVA requires equal sample sizes, while two-way ANOVA does not. D. One-way ANOVA compares the means of one factor, while two-way ANOVA compares the means of 2 factors. 6. In the context of ANOVA, what does the term error sum of squares, SS, refer to? 8. The total variability in the dataset. B. The variability explained by the treatment. C. The variability within each treatment group. D. The variability between treatment means. 7. In one-way ANOVA, the independent variable must be X. A. Categorical with at least 3 levels. B. Numerical and continuous. C. A ratio scale variable. D. A dependent variable. 8. If an ANOVA test results in a non-significant F ratio, what is the correct conclusion? A. At least one group is different from the others. B. The groups all have significantly different means. C. There is no sufficient evidence to conclude that the means are different. D. The total variance is equal to 0. 7. 76. Chapter 7. 9. The larger the F ratio in ANOVA, the more likely it is that 8. The group means are similar. B. The treatment effect is large. C. The within-group variance is large. D. The test statistic follows a normal distribution. 10. In one-way ANOVA, the degrees of freedom for the error term is calculated as A. K1, B. N1, C. Kn, D. Wk. Enumerate the following examples. Telephone, state the null and alternate. Cam scan. Exercises. Write true or false and correct the false. 1. In correlation analysis, both variables are treated equally without distinction between independent and dependent variables. False. True. 2. A correlation coefficient, R, of +1 means that there is a weak positive correlation. False. 3. In simple linear regression, the independent variable, y, is used to predict the dependent variable, x. False. 4. The regression slope, b, represents how much x changes for a 1-unit increase in. False. 5. A correlation of -0.5 is stronger than a correlation of +0.3. True. 6. The scatter plot is used to visualize the relationship between two numerical variables. True. Non 7. If the slope, b, in a regression equation is 0, it means there is a strong relationship between x and y flaws. Strong 8. A correlation coefficient, R, of 0.8 indicates a weak correlation. False Remy. Slefe. 9. A high correlation coefficient, R, always means that changes in x cause changes in y pulse. 10. The regression line is also known as the line of best fit because it minimizes the sum of squared residuals. The equal. 11. If the correlation coefficient, R, is close to 0, it means there is no linear relationship between the two variables. False. Relation. Choose the correct answer. Reen. 1. What is the primary purpose of correlation analysis? A. To predict the dependent variable based on an independent variable. B. To determine the strength and direction of a relationship between two variables. C. To calculate the slope of a regression equation. D. To develop a cause and effect relationship. 2. What is the range of the Pearson correlation coefficient, R? A. -2 to 2. B. -1 to 1. C. 0 to 1. D. 00 to co. Chapter I. 3. In simple linear regression, which variable is the dependent variable? A. the variable that is being predicted. B, the variable that influences changes in the other variable. C, the variable that remains constant. D, the variable with the highest value. What does a regression coefficient B of 0.03 mean in the equation y equals 0.06 plus 0.03x? A. For every 1 unit increase in x, y decreases by 0.03. B. For every 1 unit increase in x, y increases by 0.03. C. There is no relationship between x and y. D. Y always remains constant at 0.03. 5. What is the key difference between correlation and regression? A. Correlation implies causation, whereas regression does not. Correlation measures relationship strength, while regression makes predictions. C. Regression is used for categorical data, whereas correlation is not. D. Regression is used only when correlation is negative. 6. What is the intercept, A, in the regression equation y equals a plus bx? A. The slope of the regression line by the predicted value of y when x is 0. C. The correlation coefficient. D. The dependent variable. 7. What type of relationship does a correlation coefficient of minus 0.8 indicate? A. No relationship. B. A strong negative relationship. C. A strong positive relationship. D. A weak positive relationship. 8. Which of the following would indicate the strongest linear relationship between two variables? A. R equals 0.2. B. R equals minus 0.8. C. R equals 0.5. D. R equals minus 0.3. Cover no sum.